Continued from the previous file. Question 6. Page 17. Question 6. How far would it be correct to say that the dramatic conflict in the Riders to the Sea is between the sea and humanity? Answer. Riders to the Sea is a Gaelic Greek tragedy. The characters are victims of fate. The central character, Moria, bows to the will of the gods at the end of the play. The play gives a strong sense of fate in the classical sense. The tragedy goes back to the primal emotions, to the struggle of man with nature. The conflict of man with the sea, the giver and taker, is the archetypal symbol of the primitive man's helpless surrender to nature. The sea, which is as unfeeling as hardest immanent will, is the offstage protagonist of the play. The sea is not visible for a single moment in the play, but its dominant presence in the life of the people of Aran Islands is conveyed through its hungry roarings. The sea weaves the tragic net in which the characters are caught. The sea and humanity are mysteriously interlocked. It symbolizes the inscrutable fate against which the poor fishermen are pitted. It is an unequal fight, and Moria, the heroine, tries hard to avert the final tragedy by preventing her last surviving son from going to the sea. But her efforts fail, and she suffers the tragedy of losing all in the sea. In the play, the sea is a dominant character, the enemy and challenger of youth. Bartley is the human opponent. Bartley takes up the challenge of the sea and goes to the sea in spite of its menace and terribleness. The conflict in the play is really between fishermen and the sea, and Moria's suffering is projected through the struggle of man with the sea. The play shows the archetypal conflict between the fishermen and the sea. Men must go out to sea, and women will weep and wail. In the play, the conflict does not have any suspense and surprise, because in the play, expected things happen. There is no reversal as in other tragedies. The final defeat of men at the hands of cruel sea is a foregone conclusion. The tragic interest lies in the heroic endurance and heroic sufferings of Moria. Everyone in the play, young and old, women as well as men, knows the state of the sea, the signs of the weather, the strength and direction of the tides, the set of the wind. Quote, "He won't go this way with the wind rising from south and west." Unquote. Quote, "The wind is raising the sea, and there was a star up against the moon, and it is rising in the night." Unquote. Thus the characters are always contending with the forces of nature. Michael and Bartley are the riders to the sea. The sea is a demon hungry for men. Processes of nature, unconscious and indifferent to men, have only worked for men's suffering. Page 18. Moria tries to avert her final tragedy by preventing her last surviving son from going out to the sea. The conflict between Moria and the sea takes the form of conflict between the mother and the son. Moria tries to pit herself against the sea by trying to lure away her son from the sea, which casts an overwhelming spell on her son. She argues with Bartley, appeals to him. She knows that a young man is tempted by the challenge of the sea. She speaks of her forebodings, of the cruelties of the sea. She even appeals to the avarice of a businessman by saying that Kathleen will not be able to bargain with the quote, "jobber." Unquote. Thus there is a contest between Moria and the sea through Bartley. But the contest is an unequal one, and is doomed to an end in favor of the sea. Really speaking, it is not the conflict that is interesting in the play. It is the sufferings of Maurya, her vain attempt to resist her fate, and her final resignation that gives rise to feelings of pity and terror and admiration. The terribleness of nature does not produce tragic emotions. It is Maurya's grief at the wretchedness of man and her ultimate attainment of sublimity through heroic endurance and fortitude that constitute the tragic interest of the play. Question 7. The tragedy in Riders to the Sea becomes more lurid by being presented through the medium of the old mother Maurya. Her mental obsession and deep-rooted superstitious view of life bring out in the context of this judgment the peculiar tragic impression of the drama. Or, what is your final impression of Riders to the Sea? Is the effect one of bleak despair or calm resignation? Answer. Tragedy as a work of art deals with the story of the sufferings and calamities of men and women leading to their ruin and death. And the final impression of such a tale is one of deep sadness or pessimism. Hence, the picture of life that is presented in a tragedy is a lurid and somber one. Quote, now the sufferings of the hero or the heroine are due to various causes. The chief of these is some, quote, fatal flaw, unquote, in character, some moral blindness or weakness, unquote. A fatal tendency to identify his whole being with one interest, object, passion or habit of thought. But this is not the whole truth about the tragic view of life presented by great dramatists. Hints of an unseen power which is ever lurking in the universe, ready to seize upon man, to upset all his calculations and to engulf him in ruin, are unmistakably present in every tragic reading of life. In the Greek tragedy, this vast pitiless power is called by the name of fate or nemesis. The Greeks believed in the will of gods, page 19, who are hostile to man, or in fate that follows inevitably human vice or virtue. Against this power, man fights blindly and goes down. The modern tragedies too are pervaded by a profound sense of fate, with this difference that this power manifests itself in various shapes like chance, accidents or supernatural beings or signs. In the case of some, for instance, Hardy or Singh, this fate is synonymous with nature that is hostile to man and incarnates itself in gloomy woods, heaths, moorlands, in bracket as in Hardy's novels, bracket close, or the roaring hungry sea which takes its heavy toll of human lives, in bracket as in Riders to the Sea, bracket close. Men and women in these tragedies can rarely escape this ubiquitous power. All their prayers, struggles, lamentations are of no avail against the inexorable working of the ironical, malevolent, blind power. And when the curtain finally falls upon the tragedy, our minds are filled with a sense of the utter helplessness of man in the struggle with his fate. The ultimate impression of a tragedy is a sad sense of waste. Now the question is tragedy pessimistic or depressing? Is the final impression one of bleak despair? The answer is no. Mere pessimism cannot produce a great work of art. A certain sense of glory is needed to make a work of art healthy. there is all the difference in the world between pessimistic and tragic views of life. What converts the pessimistic into the tragic is the high and noble conception of human nature, its power to endure the blows of fate with courage, never to yield or submit. This is the essence of all great tragedies. A tragedy does not leave us in a mood of utter despair or depression or rebellion. Its effect is one of admiration at the magnificence of human passion and endurance and courage. The calm of mind, all patience spent, that is the ultimate impression left on the audience as they rise to go home. They witness the storms, struggles and ruins, but somehow or other they are made to feel that these noble souls are not lost and that their agony counts as nothing against the heroism and love which move and thrill their hearts. Thus, when fate has done its worst on her, the bereaved and broken mother, Maurya, says in a mood of calm resignation, "What more, what more can we want than that? No man at all can be living forever, and we must be satisfied." Unquote. This is the endurance of a noble stoic who has been steeled, not broken, by the bitter experiences of a life, being mauled by the cruel, inexorable sea. There is glory in this resignation, and this relieves the fatalism of oppression of the There is glory in this resignation, and this relieves the fatalism or pessimism of the tragedy. In bracket, for further elaboration, see answer to question number 3, bracket closed. Page 20. Question 8. In the tragedy in Riders to the Sea, based on characters or an inscrutable fate superior to human personality, discuss with illustrative references. Answer. The question put here refers to the relative importance of fate or character in a tragedy. It may also be put in another form. Quote, "Is the dictum character is destiny a completely satisfying vision of life?" Unquote. On this matter, two views are generally held. One view is that of the ancient Greek tragedians, who held that man is a mere plaything in the hands of the cruel gods or destiny, who crushes him irrespective of his worth. The heroes of the Greek tragedies fight blindly against this inscrutable power and go down to this unequal flight. Quote, "As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They kill us for their sport." Unquote. This is the pessimistic view that adds a note of profound fatalism to the Greek tragedy. The other view, namely, quote, "character of destiny," unquote, implies that there is no such thing as a blind, unreasoning power which comes upon us from outside and overbears our will. We carry our doom or happiness within ourselves. Quote, "The gods are just and of our pleasant vices make instrument to plague us." Unquote. Man in this view is the architect of his destiny and plucks upon his head the results of his own deeds. Now, applied to life and to literature, which is but a reflex of life, both these doctrines contain only the half-truth, and in a tragic scheme of life as given by the great masters, both character and destiny, human personality and the will of gods receive an equal amount of emphasis, and when the balance is tied on one side, it determines the character of the play as pessimist or tragic. Now, Riders to the Sea is a tragedy based upon the lives of primitive, ignorant, superstitious people living in an island cut off from the modern civilization. Their mental and physical habits are still primitive. Though Christianity has entered here, and we hear of a priest who assures Moria that, quote, Almighty God won't leave her destitute, unquote. The Christian sentiments of the people are strongly leavened with their primitive pagan faiths. The creeds of their primitive Celtic forefathers still persist with great force. Thus, we hear that Moria says her prayer day and night for the safety of her living children, and also prays for the peace and rest and mercy of God upon the soul of her father, father-in-law, husband, and the 4 sons who had been the victims of the relentless sea. But deep down her mind, there is the streak on the primitive superstitious faith in portents, omens, and signs. Thus, the scene of, quote, the star up against, page 21, the moon, unquote, at night fills her with a gloomy foreboding. As Bartley rides and Moria runs behind him to give him blessing and bread, which in her depressed state of mind she had practically forgotten, she has the vision of the, quote, fearfulest thing, unquote, namely Michael riding on the grey pony behind Bartley's red mare. Moria knows what it portends, and even the young girl Kathleen has the premonition that, quote, it's destroyed we are from this day, unquote. Again, nature in this rugged and craggy island is not the, quote, kind mother, unquote, of Wordsworth's description, but she is, quote, red in tooth and claw, unquote, the cruelest of mothers, relentless, exacting, and devouring her children in infinite darkness. She is insensible and actively hostile to the thoughts and aspirations of men, and takes a sort of malicious pleasure in destroying human life and joy. In this sense, nature is synonymous with the tragic force behind the universal process that is called by various names as destiny, chance, immanent will, and all that. In this island, the gentle and cheerful aspects of nature have been ruled out, and instead we have only the somber and meagre aspects. Thus, Singh has endowed this nature with a life and personality of her own. She is not merely a convenient background for the human drama, but is herself a superhuman protagonist, making or marring the fate of the puny mortals that come with her orbit. One such malignant aspect of nature is represented by sea. It is fate appearing as a roaring, bowling, and hungry sheet of water. Every motion of it is familiar to the folk. Every change in the sound of the wind brings to them the tidings of their imminent doom. Thus, the sea is a living force in the play, and all men are doomed riders out to the sea. A profound sense of fate underlies the play. The sea, which is as unfeeling as Hardy's immanent will, is the offstage protagonist of the play. The sea is not visible for a single moment in the play, but its dominant presence in the life of the people of Aran Island is conveyed through its hungry roarings. The sea weaves the tragic net in which characters are caught. The sea and humanity are mysteriously interlocked. It symbolizes inscrutable fate. Now, as to the responsibility of human personality in determining its career, it is clear that there is no conflict in the play between the human personages and the malignant power called sea. Moria, Bartley, Michael do nothing to challenge or tempt the power of the sea, which always comes heavily upon them inevitably. They are the doomed people, marked out by fate for the predestined end is a slight conflict, only hinted at and not sufficiently worked out between the will of the mother and that of the son and her son Bartley. Moria has been unnerved, page 22, by certain signs. For example, the star up against the moon. She tried to prevent the sun from crossing the stormy sea, but Bartley must go, for it is the part of men to go out to the sea to earn living. There is no question of any challenge to the sea, and the result is that what is allotted cannot be blotted. Chance here appears as the instrument of the dark power. The grey pony, following his mare, kicks him off, and he is hurled into the mouth of the sea, which devours him. Thus it is fate working over men, and not through men, that brings about the tragedy. In Shakespeare or Hardy, or even in Greek tragedy, fate to a great extent makes certain defects the instruments to play men, but the same cannot be said here. These men suffer for no fault of theirs. Fate kills them for its sports. The sea has done its worst on the poor family. Moria accepts the fate with the calm resignation of a stoic. Quote, "They are all gone now, and there is not anything more the sea can do to me. It is not that I haven't prayed for you, Bartley, to the Almighty God. To the Almighty God." Unquote. These are her words of keening over the dead body of the last son. Question 9. What does the sea represent in the Riders to the Sea? Show how Synge presents the sea both as a setting for the situations in the play and a symbol. Or the sea becomes a living force, a demon hungering after men. Illustrate with reference to Riders to the Sea. Answer. One of the most interesting features of Synge's poetic plays consists in the dramatist's attitude to and treatment of nature. The romantic moment had brought its poet of nature, Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, etc. Wordsworth gives philosophic treatment of nature, showing her not merely as a mass of attractive colors, forms and sounds, of lovely sights and sounds, but as being pervaded by an indwelling spirit that enters into every object of us, giving them a freshness, meaning and beauty. Hardy has done the same thing in his poetic novels. It is Synge who, for the first time in the modern age, turned nature to admirable poetic account in presenting his picture of the lives of the dramatis persona in the series of his plays. In his treatment of nature, he is a true romantic with the vision and art of a great poet. Nature holds a preeminent position, a fundamental importance in the tragic scheme of life given in his plays. In this respect, he may be compared with Wordsworth, the poet of nature par excellence. His views of nature with something of the mysticism and much of the same careful, sensitive observation that we find in Wordsworth. But he shows no tendency to build up a philosophy of nature. continued in the next file.